take their seats. I see a couple people still filling out their forms at the introduction table. So I guess I'll get us quickly started with my introduction. My name is Carl Granrath. I'm the hearing examiner for tonight's hearings. So the purpose of tonight's hearings is for me to receive evidence and testimony for the matters that are pending tonight, as well as the record that I have received and reviewed and will review as I complete my recommendation. So keyword there being recommendation, which is my role is to facilitate tonight's meeting and then write a recommendation that will be forwarded to the county commissioners, who ultimately have the decision-making authority for your applications. I have from 2 weeks from tonight's hearings when I will be submitting my recommendation, and then it will be set for to be put in front of your county commissioners, who again will have the final decision-making authority for these applications. So as I see has already been done here, and we may have some people who are online as well. But if you do wish to give testimony, you'll have to fill out these sheets. If you're online, I'll let you know when there's the opportunity for you to speak. And just a couple quick points there. I ask that you direct all of your testimony towards me, not anyone else who may be in the crowd or online. And you are limited to 5 minutes per person for your public testimony. So just as a matter of procedure as well, we're going to start with an introduction of the application by the staff, and then following that will be an opportunity for the applicant to make a presentation that can go up to 30 minutes, and then we'll have public testimony. And then following that, there will be a 15-minute opportunity for rebuttal by the applicant so that they can address anything that came up from public comment, so that we can have a full and complete record. So with that, I think I'll get us into it. I'm not sure ahead of time which application everyone is here for, but as far as what I have for our itinerary, we are starting with the conditional use permit tonight. Okay, so the first, I'm going to open the public hearing at 6:03 p.m. for CUP, which one is this? 22-0014 Tex Dog Lodge.
Good evening. For the record, Vlad Finkel with Kootenai County Community Development. As you stated, this is a request for a conditional use permit to establish a commercial dog kennel. The applicant's name is Tekla Gottru, and the name of the project is Tex Dog Lodge. The request is located on the north side of Kootenai County, directly to the north of Seasons Road and west of Clackstone. It is a 10-acre parcel of land located in the rural zone. As you can see, based on an aerial picture, it is heavily vegetated. There is an existing residence on site, a shop, and then that building in which the kennels have already been constructed. Before I get into the specifics of the request, I'd like to say that in speaking with the applicant, it appears that a dog kennel has been on the property for quite some time, and that over the course of years, recently, some of the operations on site have become more consistent. I can't say more intense, but more consistent with a commercial kennel based on our definition in the Land Use Development Code. The site is fairly level. There is a TC Energy utility easement in the northwest corner of the subject property. However, the existing structures on site and where the dog kennels are located are nowhere in proximity where the utility easement is. So therefore, because we didn't receive any comments from TC Energy, and being that the development is away from that utility line, we don't have any concerns. If in the future they do decide to have an expansion of their use or somehow have any training in that area, we do have a recommendation as a conditional approval that those improvements are approved by said utility. As I said, the zoning is rural. It is surrounded by rural parcels with commercial parcel to the southwest. I believe it's some sort of it's some sort of a operation. It appears like it's under the ownership of TransCanada, and it's an existing gas transmission station. So the existing uses in the area are predominantly residential in nature. The comp plan designation is country, and the applicant's facility will consist of a total of 9 kennels. Some of them are going to be various sizes. They do have a number of them that have access to a gated outdoor area. They will have a maximum of up to 5 clients on the property at any given time, and as many as 16 dogs. So that's kind of the scope of their operations. One of the discussions that we had early on, and that I suggested the applicant have a discussion with the Panhandle Health Department, was with respect to having appropriate sanitary facilities on site for clients. The applicant originally advised me that they would like to have, or they would like to allow folks within their residence to utilize a bathroom if they needed to, and I advised them that it's unlikely that our building division would approve that, because it would require a portion of the structure to potentially have a change of use and have to have ADA accessibility accommodations, and that I don't know if the existing septic system on site has been designed to allow effluent discharge from residential use as well as commercial use. So I advised them that they could talk to the health department, and perhaps one of the options would be, as I have seen in other cases, not specifically a dog kennel, but other commercial operations, is to have a porta potty that would be, temporarily placed or seasonally placed, during the month that it's likely that they're going to have operations on the property. And that was one of the discussions that the applicant had, because we did receive a response from the health department, as you saw in the staff report, that they do encourage, or they say, we're not going to authorize you utilizing the existing restroom within the residence for your clientele. You should either have a porta potty or another fixed structure constructed with a septic system and drain field meeting commercial design standards, or have those operations off-site. And we do have a condition of approval as part of the staff report that does state that they should either have a fixed restroom on site meeting all Panhandle health requirements, or a porta potty on as needed basis to make those accommodations for their clientele. These are some of the photos that the applicant had provided. It appears that it's very well kept, and it provides for the necessary boarding accommodations that the applicant is providing. I forgot to mention that they will have up to 3 litters per year. In some cases it's 1, 2, but a maximum of 3 litters per year. I think they explained it was a miniature Australian Shepherd. But I don't think the code has any restrictions on the type of dogs that are being bred, and as long as they exceed 2 litters per year, then that elevates them to the commercial kennel review. Through the agency comment period, we did solicit comments from the Highway District Fire Department, as well as our Building Division, Health Department, and Sheriff's Department. And so, being that the scope of operations is very minor, with maximum of 5 individuals on site at any given time, the Highway District didn't really have any concerns with impacts to their existing right-of-way in the area. Fire Department had no additional requirements. Community Development had some building permit requirements that we did incorporate as part of the staff report. Panhandle Health Department, I already spoke about having the option of having fixed or portable restroom facility, or providing those services off-site specifically for training. I'm sure if somebody was to drop off their dog for boarding, it's likely a non-issue. But if there is someone on site for, a period of time, those restroom facility accommodations need to be made. And of course, Kootenai County Sheriff's Office has to have a review. I think it's on an annual basis for for a kennel, regardless of whether it's a private or a commercial kennel. But I advise the applicant, once this land use application is reviewed, and if it's approved, there's not going to be any need to go through this rigorous review requiring a public hearing and agency review, with the exception of Sheriff's Office, as they have done in the past, unless there is a major modification that may come into play at some point in the future, which the applicant advised me they don't anticipate having much of a change from what's being proposed today. We did receive one comment in support during the public comment period, and staff believes that we don't anticipate there being any negative impacts to the surrounding community. First, the parcels in the area are quite large. They're 10 acres or so in size. They're heavily vegetated, and having, being that there has been a kennel on site for quite some time, meeting private standards, being converted to a commercial operation with minimal or with few clients at any given time, we just don't see that being a compatibility issue. In fact, the public comments support that. That being the case, we recommend approval, as well as having the applicant comply with the number of conditions that were placed in the staff report for your review. And I stand for any questions that you have for me.
Thank you, Mr. Finkel. If I do have questions, I may bring you back up after the applicant and public comment. So thank you for your presentation. So with that, I think I'm going to get us into, the applicant's presentation. So I guess if you so wish to give a presentation, you don't have to use 30 minutes. But if you would like to speak in favor of your application, please come up to the podium and state your name and address, and any comments and do remember that you will have an opportunity for rebuttal if there are comments in opposition you wish to address.
All right, so I didn't bring a PowerPoint or anything, but this is basically a hobby that I make a little extra money at, because word got around that I train dogs, and the breeding program I have only has 4 dogs in it, and I actually have not exceeded 2 litters per year. The kennel has only existed on the property for about 4 years, and the only dogs that I kennel for other people are mostly neighbors and people that would potentially buy a puppy from me, that would buy a pup and want to bring it back to be dog sat. So it's a pretty small operation. I mean, there's just not a lot to it. When I had mentioned that there'd be 5 people on site at any given time, that would be if a family comes to look at a puppy. So most of the time, it's just one person that may come for training, and half of those trainings usually are actually off-site. They're not on-site at all. We have a few on-site, and then we have the rest of the trainings in a public area. And also 16 dogs on site. That is actually if I have a litter. So it's not even, I'm counting if I had 7 puppies. So, I am capable of doubling up dogs in kennels, but I don't normally do that because I don't have that many dogs in the kennels. I'm trying to think of what else to say. I've have quite a few people that have, been to the facility, and I actually get quite a bit of community support with my dogs. And what else do I do? The boarding. Yeah, the boarding is pretty minimal. Breeding, pretty minimal. And I do training. Most of the time I'm helping people with their dogs and don't really get a lot of pay for that. So, do you have any other questions for me?
Sure, yeah, just so I fully understand the story and procedure here, what prompted you to seek a conditional use permit?
I did not. I was told that I needed to convert to a commercial kennel because I made a little bit of money at it. That's what I was told. I didn't pursue it. I was just told that because other people bring dogs to my place for me to dog sit, that I needed to be a commercial kennel, and that if I have more than one litter a year, I needed to be a commercial kennel. And because I do the dog training and I make $25 to help somebody with their dog if I charge them. That's it. Really.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Not at this time, but if I do, I will bring you back up and ask.
Okay.
So, thank you.
All right.
All right, and I'm just gonna go in the order I have them stacked.
I did forget to mention one thing.
Sure, come back up.
The porta potty solution came up. Most of my activity at my home is that concerns the dogs is in the summertime. Otherwise, initially they were asking me to dig up my septic and redo it, which would have been very expensive. And for the amount of money that I make, a lot of that is going to be taken up by putting a porta potty on my property for 3 or 4 months. So it's almost a wash to put a porta potty on the property and pay about $200 a month for the porta potty is going to eat up any and more than money I would make training dogs. So that's the other piece of that puzzle. And I didn't want to spend $4,000 on digging up my septic. I have so few people come up to the house. I think maybe in the last 3 years, I've had 6 people use my bathroom. That's it on that one. So I didn't feel like that was much of a risk on that one. All right, that's it.
Thank you. All right, as for public comments, first person I have here is Connie Anderson, who is in favor and wishes to speak.
Good evening, hearing examiner. I'm Connie Anderson of 1356 North Tavella Way in Coeur d'Alene, and I'm here speaking in favor of approving a CUP to operate the commercial dog kennel for Tech. She's a respected member of the Kootenai County Search and Rescue Canine Unit, and I am one of the beneficiaries of her training expertise off-site. She's a considerate neighbor and a responsible dog owner, and she's providing a much-needed service in the area where there are many dog owners who need her services. So I just wanted to give my support today in favor of the permit. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have Charity Thompson in favor, but does not wish to speak. Is that still true?
Yes.
Does not wish to speak, okay. I'm gonna do all of those in favor to begin with. I do see one who wishes to speak and is opposed, but I will start with all who are in favor. So next I have Trina Woolley, does not wish to speak. Is that still correct?
Yes.
Okay. Cliff Pratt, in favor, who may wish to speak. All right, come on up, sir.
Good evening.
State your name for the record, and address for the record, or city of residence, but your name, please.
My name is Cliff Pratt, and I live up in Rathdrum, Idaho. And I live probably about 4 miles south of Tech, Dog Lodge. My wife and I got a puppy a couple of years ago, and we reached out to the community looking for a dog trainer. And about 90% of the community, when it came back with information, they all pointed to Tech. And it was positive, upbeat. We've been to a couple of animal clinics, and they've, commended us on our training of our dog, who was very young at the time when Tech started training her. And we all pointed to and told them, hey, it was Tech who trained her. No, and they're like, yeah, we know Tech. She does a really good job. And it was just that more of a positive influence that we found the right person to train our dog. And with that in mind, with her training and everything that she's provided, it's been very positive for the dog and other dogs around her. I have not seen anything negative towards the dogs or towards anybody up visiting on the property. The dogs just don't run aimlessly, nor have they ever been neglected. We've spent many sessions with Tech. She's cared for our dog. As a matter of fact, earlier last year when my brother passed away, we had to find someone right away so we could go down to the funeral. We were hoping to get there before he passed away, but we called Tech on the phone. They said, hey, we need some help. And Tech was like, bring your dog up, And she took care of our dog for a week, and it was great. It helped us get through a family challenge that we faced. Personally, in my own opinion, I think Tech really is an asset to the community and to the dog community. Teaching, training, making dogs that are much more mindful and careful when they're out and about, rather than just having a dog that no one really took the time to train. And even to this day, I still pass Tech's name around to various folks. So I'm good to hear about this hearing, and I'm very happy to be up here talking about Tech. So thank you. Are there any questions I can ask for you?
No, and thank you.
You're welcome.
Pamela Pratt, who may wish to speak.
Pamela Pratt, Rostrum, Idaho. The only thing that's different from what my husband said is that I've done a lot of research on where to board because we have cats and dogs. We have 1 dog and 2 cats. And so I researched all the different lodging areas that are in Coeur d'Alene and Hayden. And I didn't check Rostrum but Coeur d'Alene and Hayden. And the reviews were really sketchy. And I appreciate all the businesses out there, and I didn't know them, and so I really appreciate having someone that we know and we've trusted, and we've seen her interact with dogs, and we've seen where she boards the dogs, and we've been there enough times off and on throughout the training sessions that we have a really good grasp that it's always clean and well maintained, and the dogs are well cared for, and she always sends us a little video of what our dog's doing when she's hanging out with them. So anyway, that was it. I just want to say that we've done our due diligence, and we really appreciate that there's a place out in kind of not in a building, but out in with acreage that she can have the dog go out on a leash and run and play with the other dogs and still be safe. So that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, I did see a couple people come in after maybe I got some of the sign-in sheets. So if there's anyone else who's here in person who wishes to speak in favor of this application, please come on up now. All right, not seeing anyone move. I do want to see if there's anyone online who wishes to speak in favor. I think I saw 1 or 2 people on there.
I see one person that looks like could potentially want to speak. It's Mr. E. Pellison. If you're desiring to speak on this topic, now would be the time to unmute yourself and go right ahead. He just sent me a message saying he's for the next application.
Yes, sir.
That is Representative Laura Adams for the next step.
Okay. All right. Great. So then seeing no other public comment in favor of this application, I do have one person who does wish to or may wish to speak in opposition, David Gabrielson.
Yeah, I would like to speak.
All right.
And I do want to make it clear, sorry, I'll get up here. I do want to make it clear that I'm in favor of tech, but I'm opposed to because that's my understanding is the commercial use permit might be not financially feasible for the size of operation that she has. Like everyone else kind of testified, she's fantastic with dogs. She helped me with my dog. I'm a neighbor. Oh, sorry, Dave Gabrielson with Athol. That's where I'm from. Not too far. I drive by her place every day on Seasons Road. You would not really even know it's there, honestly. There's a driveway up there, and way up there, there's her kennel. And the pictures are accurate. It's a very well-kept place. I haven't done training with her on site. She's come to my house, done training with the dog. It's a pretty quick session, honestly. And then I've never really had to use the restroom there. Just dropping the dog off, and yeah, it's fantastic. So, if I thought that she wanted the commercial use permit and this was something she was pursuing, I would be 100% in favor of it. I don't think that's what she's looking for here. So therefore, I marked my position as opposed.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, sir. Just one second. All right, since I don't think there's anyone else who wishes to speak on this application, there is an opportunity for the applicant, if they would like to make any final words or address anything that's been brought up, including your one opposed member of the public. If not, then, Mr. Finkel, sir.
I do have a comment that I wanted to make, if you don't mind.
Yes, please.
Hearing the applicant's testimony, I just want to clarify something. I did have a conversation with Tech regarding the restroom facility option. I understand that it may be financially challenging for her to even have a portable restroom on site. But I want to be very clear for the public and on record. Unfortunately, we don't have any other viable solution other than a fixed restroom as suggested by Panhandle Health District with its own septic system or a portable restroom on site. So hearing the applicant's testimony, I'm questioning whether her testimony is open-ended with a request for some level of for some way to not be required to have any restroom facilities on site. So I don't know if you wanted to follow up with that comment with the applicant, or if you wanted to provide an assessment in your recommendation. It's up to you, but I just wanted to kind of close the loop on that and see if we can get past that point, because it seems to me like we have an open-ended discussion with the applicant having a concern that this is not something that's financially viable for them, either of the two options, being even the porta potty that could be a couple $100s a month could be cost prohibitive. So if you could have the applicant elaborate on that, or if you wanted to take the liberty of having another suggestion in your recommendation, it's totally your call.
Do you know what the threshold is for the requirement?
So I'm glad you asked that question. As I understand, every septic permit application, regardless whether it's this applicant's or any residential use, is based on the number of bedrooms within the residence itself, strictly for residential use. And so it's not based on the number of bathrooms. It's based on bedrooms, based on sleeping quarters, the number of individuals that are expected to stay on site. And so once you introduce another use, which I understand this is going to be very small in nature. I mean, it's not going to be very impactful. There's just going to be very few people, if any, on site. But it does rise above a primary residential use on site that somebody would be occupying that residence. And unfortunately, having heard the applicant, we have to have that condition in place based on the recommendation of Panhandle Health District and based on our experience dealing with these types of applications. So if the applicant finds it challenging, cost prohibitive to meet one of the two, I don't know if this is a viable project. I just want to be very clear on record. And if the director wants to chime in, and if he has maybe another option or some suggestion to take up with the applicant or the health department, I'm certainly open to that. But I just don't know what else to suggest.
Okay. Thank you.
Unless you have any questions.
Oh, yeah, I think I do. Give me a second to formulate my thought. So the threshold here for seeking the conditional use permit, and, you know, from reviewing the materials and just from your testimony, is that it seemed like the applicant was somehow tipping over the threshold from this being a private kind of home occupation to more of a commercial use, thus necessitating the CUP. And that threshold is going to 3 litters?
Well, it's not just that. It's having boarding and providing training on site. So it's a combination of various components of her operation. The way I was contacted is my supervisor, Ben Tarbutton, placed this a pre-application in my queue to contact the applicant. When I contacted the applicant, based on the discussion we had, I understood that this operation, or not this operation, but a dog kennel was on site for some time. The applicant advised me that it was, or stated on record, it was up to 4 years. So after having a brief discussion, I understood that the current operations were sort of over the tipping point from a private kennel to a commercial kennel. When that took place, whether it's recent or in the last 4 years, I don't know. I just know I was given the pre-application meeting, which then evolved into an actual submittal that got us to this point. But I don't know if that has much of a relevance into how the project evolved because we support it. My main concern is based on the applicant's testimony is that how do we resolve this issue? I understand her dilemma, and I just don't know what else to offer because if one of the two options that was provided by the health department doesn't work, where do we go from here?
Okay. Thank you for your testimony. Mr. Callahan, would you like to chime in, sir?
Mr. Hearing Examiner, it seems to me the dilemma is that this proposal barely rises to the level of a need for a conditional use permit. And that being the case, I'd be inclined to offer up some discretion of saying, and I'm making up numbers out, pulling them out of the air, but something to the effect of unless the applicant has more than 5 people visiting a month, then they could surely get by with the restroom on site. Because obviously that's been going on for some years now, and there doesn't seem to be an issue.
So thinking out loud, perhaps the condition could be if
Some number.
the operation ever expands to beyond a certain number, then
Then it has to have the condition that Vlad wrote into the staff report. So maybe if you could come up with some threshold to give the operator, the owner, some leeway, that would be helpful.
Would there be a need, just to clarify, would there be a need to waive any of the building permit requirements for change of use to allow the public inside the building? Because I know that has come up in the past. I'm just concerned that if we open that.
Vlad's, for the record, and for people that couldn't hear, Vlad's concerned about the building permit requirements for change of use, and that since this is a commercial use, if you have people in the home should meet ADA requirements under the building code. That's spot on, that's what the law says, but again, here we have the weirdness of an application that just barely reaches the threshold of needing this CUP. So I will tell you, this catches me by surprise. We didn't have this discussion on a staff level earlier, so I don't have a good solution for you, but I think I'd be receptive to carrying forward your recommendation to the board with some latitude for the applicant, if you feel like it's possible.
And just to clarify, to what Director Callahan had just stated, I was unaware that the porta potty option was not a financially feasible option. I thought that based on my recommendation to the applicant and the discussion that they had with the health department, that this was a viable option. But having heard the testimony this evening, it caught me by surprise as well. So I just want to be clear on record that it didn't seem to be the case when we headed into this meeting. I was under the impression that a portable restroom would be a solution in this case.
Okay, can I have the applicant come back up can I ask you a couple questions, please? So I would like to know more about the amount of traffic that does come to your house. You said that the summer is kind of your key months, but just an example of maybe in the winter, how many people come, who are customers who come to your house? And then during, let's say, your peak months in the summer, what that rate is like?
So during the winter, I don't have much training at all because all of my training is done outside. I don't do my training inside if I have someone come for a training session. So right now, I mean, if I'm going to speak as of right now, I actually don't have anyone coming to my home for training. And I've only had one dog in the kennel that was not mine, that I was boarding. And they come for usually 10 to 14 days at a time. So that customer only comes when they drop their dog off and pick their dog up. So that's one person. That's about one person every 10 days right now. During the summer, I might have a full kennel, and most of the time those dogs are staying for 5 days or more, 5 to 14 days, I would say. And those customers, I've actually never had anyone that used the kennel ever use my bathroom. They usually just come quick, drop the dog off, and leave. And as far as the puppies go, most of my litters are in the summertime, so they would come and view a puppy, and they might bring their kids, but some of them are surprises, and so the parents come and look at the puppies, and they're probably there. That's probably the longest duration someone would stay on the property. And again, most of the time that is outside. They're outside in a pen. I bring the pups out for them to view outside, not in the house. And most of the time, well, I said like there's been like 6 people that have used my bathroom in 3 to 4 years. It's usually one of the kids. So, if one of the kids comes, they have to use the bathroom. So, and the conversation I did have about the bathroom was not with Vlad. It was with the Panhandle Health Department. And that was the exact conversation we had. Their first presentation was expand the septic requirement. And that conversation I had with them was basically, are you kidding me? So I kind of, we in discussion the porta potty was brought up. And then I said, it's not even a viable solution for me to have a porta potty year-round at my property. Because, well, right now, I'm in the snow belt, so I get way more snow than town does. I have half an igloo at my house right now with snow pushed to the sides of my driveway and buildings. So I suggested maybe doing the porta potty just in the summertime, which would be when most of the people would come. And that would be probably, I'd say, an absolute maximum 3 people per week for either boarding drop-off or a training session. Because like I said, half of my training sessions are usually done off-site. So, yeah, and I'd even venture to say, because the dogs come for such a long period of time, there could be only one person a week come in to drop their dog off. And then we do my training sessions off-site. So, and the reason I kind of was trying to talk this through, and I did do a quote on the porta potty, and I'm happy to do it during the summertime. But like I said, for training, I probably make about that, if not less than what a porta potty would cost me for the summer. So the only money that I would really be making would be off the puppies and some boarding, which is even minimal. So, like I said, and it is, the way it was stated was that my business is basically just over the threshold. It was a hobby that turned into something I made a little bit of money at, a little side money. So is that an answer?
Yes, that was very good. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Callahan, sir.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Hearing Examiner, having heard that, my thought is we make the porta potty seasonally required, preferably in the summer, and as may be warranted based on numbers of individuals showing up on the site. And I'd be willing to trust the applicant with that, so that if we started to have a problem, we just call her and say, you need to have a porta potty there more frequently. But as long as there's not a problem and we have it there during the most intensive use of the season, seems like that should be fine.
Okay.
Okay,
Does that work for you?
that works for me, sir.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
And yes, thank you, sir. Mr. Callahan and Mr. Finkel, thank you for interceding me before I close the public hearing and bringing that topic back up. I do appreciate that. And your earnestness and thoroughness with making sure we get to a just resolution here. So,
Mr. Hearing, for your record, the condition of approval 803 in the report does say portable restroom shall be placed for occasional customer use. I think you can interpret that as seasonal use. If you want to clarify that in the record, you're welcome to do that as well. But I think the condition that staff has prepared in conjunction with PhD addresses adequately Mr. Callahan's statement.
okay. Thank you again. All right, with that, I do believe I am going to close the public hearing now for CUP 22-0014 at 6:43 p.m. And again, I will be writing my recommendation to forward to the staff, and this will go before your county commissioners for their final decision. Did you have a question, sir? Sure. Yeah, sure.
If it was needed during the peak season, and I know the honesty and integrity that Tech has, if she were to keep a log of how many people have used the restroom during the summertime to see if it's even worth, the validity of actually having it, and coming back and addressing you to say, hey, something, maybe 2 people used it during that 3 to 4 month period to really see if it's a useful item to have or not. I mean, my average time that I've spent with Tech for training, maybe about a half hour, 40 minutes, I can hold it. It's my responsibility anyway, you know what I mean? We're all adults. But realistically, if maybe this could be addressed at the end of the year and say, something, only 2 or 3 people used it, was it worthwhile? And I understand this is an important issue by several here, but we're also looking at big picture. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Mr. Callahan, what would be the process of amending a conditional use permit?
Consider that as a minor modification to the CUP, which we could handle
I like that. That sounds good.
And just in case not everyone heard that, Mr. Callahan would treat that as a minor modification to an existing permit, which means it would only be approval through him or his department and not have to come for another hearing.
Thank you,
So,
gentlemen, for seeing the big picture. Okay.
thank you. All right, so thank you all very much. So that public hearing for CUP 220014 is now closed, and we are going to move on to our second permit of the evening. Thank you for your patience. Those of you who are here for the variance request. So with that, now I believe we're at 6:45. I will open the public hearing for variance 22-0005 Laurel Adams Lot. And might just wait a few seconds and we'll let people clear out.
Once again, for the record, Vlad Finkel with Kootenai County Community Development. This is a request for a front yard setback to allow a residence to have a 0-foot setback from an existing prescriptive right-of-way that's bisecting the property, being Silver Beach Loop Road. The subject property is located just southeast of Coeur Lane, and it is in the unincorporated area of Kootenai County. Before I get into the specifics of this request, if you don't mind, I'd like to give some history of this area. When I came on board a number of years ago, there were numerous applications and inquiries from various property owners off of Silver Beach Loop to either A, develop their existing vacant parcel of land, or B, request a modification of an existing structure that would be encroaching into the prescribed setbacks in the agricultural suburban zone. One of the provisions in our code, and I don't have the specific section number, states that a setback shall be measured from a prescriptive right-of-way shall be measured 25 feet from the edge of the prescribed right-of-way. In this case, the prescribed right-of-way is 50 feet wide, centered on the existing paved road of Silver Beach Loop. And historically, as I recall it, and perhaps Ben Tarbutton, our planning manager, could chime in, that there was some terminology that was used throughout the department to call this area as a special case area, where due to slope conditions and historical development in the area, the department was inclined to support these types of applications to make appropriate accommodations for development of these sites, because otherwise they would be rendered unbuildable. Because due to steep slopes on site, you would have the residents hanging off a cliff. You wouldn't have vehicular access, pedestrian access, and then you would have a building on stilts and pose a safety risk. So that's just some of the background history. I have processed at least, as I recall, at least 3 or 4 variance applications in recent years. In fact, there were at least 2 that were processed about 2 years ago, and then one more further south that was processed about 4 years ago. So this history has some historical approvals. I don't want to use the word there's a precedent setting, because each and every case is reviewed based on its own merit. But we always, the director always advises us to look at the historical development of the area to have a better understanding of whether we as a department could support an application. And if the historical development in the area has buildings that are as close as right near the driving surface of the road, then we're more inclined to be open-minded and say, look, it appears that we can support this because there is a physical hardship, and it's not self-imposed, and it is necessary to make reasonable use of the site, although that specific provision is no longer part of the variance criteria. But there has to be some common sense utilized when assessing these types of requests. So that's basically that. As I said, this is an agricultural suburban parcel of land. The applicant has recently, they have two structures that are east of Silver Beach Loop Road, and the previous orientation of the two lots was being bisected by Silver Beach Loop Road. What the applicant has done, under advisement of staff, is they had done a survey a while ago, but they had recently done a boundary line adjustment to reorient the two lots so that you have one lot west of Silver Beach Loop Road right of way and one to the east. Now you may ask a question, how is it possible that somebody could have two structures on the newly readjusted parcel? We advised the applicant that we need to review one of the existing buildings to make sure that it met the ALU standards, being that it's either 1,000 square feet in size or up to 50% of the primary residence. And in this case, the existing footprint of both structures met that criteria, or at least one of them met that criteria depending on the footprint of the second. So the boundary line adjustment was done, and now we have this vacant parcel on which the applicant is requesting this variance. To date, that has not been updated by the county assessor. They're 6 to 10 months behind, and so just want to clarify if that did come up as a concern or as a confusing factor in your review of this application. This is the proposed layout of the site. The building will be abutting the existing 50-foot prescriptive right-of-way for Silver Beach Loop Road, which is under the jurisdiction of East Side Highway District. The actual residence itself will be 1'6" away from the 50-foot right-of-way with a 1'6" overhang that will be right on the right-of-way line. So it still technically meets that requirement of not encroaching but having a 0-foot setback. I did advise Mr. Kirkland, who is the contractor on this build, as well as the applicant, that they need to make sure that none of the stormwater features attributed to this roof line, like a gutter or a scupper or any other feature, does not encroach. He understands that, and he's willing to comply with that requirement through the building permit stage. One of the things that we found out that unfortunately I overlooked, and it kind of fell under the radar, is that typically when we review any variance application, what we look for are two things. We look for items that require a permit and items that require setbacks. In this case, we have done our job of reviewing the actual residence itself, being encroaching 25 feet into the front yard setback, but not encroaching into the right-of-way. But what we did discover is if you look at this close-up, it shows that the roof line is abutting, but it's not encroaching, which is consistent with my testimony. And this is a cross-section with a residence and the 50-foot prescriptive right-of-way with an overhang that's abutting but not encroaching. But as we move to this slide, what my supervisor had noticed, and unfortunately I did not notice in the building permit application that we have on file as well, that's not part of the variance application, is that the applicant at some point requested some improvements in front of the residence with a hardscape like a walkway and a 4-foot tall fence and fence posts around the front of the house and around the garage, with a walkway leading to the back, on the side leading to the back of the property with a slope change, likely an elevated pad, and then the staircase down to the back side of the property. And so I want to be very clear that we perhaps overlooked those improvements because a fence and the walkway that doesn't protrude above grade level are not subject to permits or setbacks. But it must be clearly stated on record that they cannot encroach into the right-of-way. So these features could only be improved on site or in this area if the highway district allows them. I don't believe the highway district would allow any encroachment into their setback that would compromise the future expansion of this road. So I did speak with Mr. Kirkland, and he's aware of that. In fact, he did advise me that he thought about this a while ago, and he doesn't think that this is something that the highway district would approve beyond this variance. And so therefore it would be eliminated. So during the building permit stage, we would not permit that through the highway district comments. So I just want to make sure that you're aware of that. One other important aspect of this application is every time we review either building permits for a build that meets setbacks or requires a variance, we always say, look, this area is prone to shift in soil and potentially having a slide because of unstable soil conditions. We require, as a prerequisite, a geotechnical analysis. So Mr. Kirkland worked with his engineer, and they did submit a geotechnical evaluation that did have some conceptual analysis, and they do believe that the site is suitable for development. Of course, during the building permit stage, that will be further evaluated by our building division. So I want to make sure that that's been addressed on record as well. These are some photos of the site, some of which were taken by the applicant, and of course, you can see there are very steep slopes. I mean, as you had, there's a bench right next to the road surface, and then it just sloughs off. So the closer that somebody can get the residents to the road, the better off they are with having stable soil conditions, or more stable soil conditions for that matter. We did solicit comments from various agencies. The comments are very straightforward. One of the items that the applicant will need to address is work with the fire district to make sure that if there is a need for a no parking sign due to the width of the road adjacent to their residence, that be installed to put everybody on notice. There are some requirements from health department in terms of distance from footing or foundation to the proposed septic tank, and so on. So it seems to be fairly straightforward, very common with other recommendations from previous applications. We didn't have any comments in opposition of this request because it is consistent and compatible with the historical development and some recent approvals. We do support this application as long as the applicant complies with all of the conditions set forth in the staff report, and we ask that you recommend approval to the Board of County Commissioners.
Okay, I think you, again, aptly preempted some of the questions I was going to have for you. So this time, thank you, and I, again, reserve the right to call you back up and grill you some more. Thank you, Mr. Finkel. Applicant and/or their representative, now is your time, and come on up.
Hi, I'm John Kirkland, a contractor for Laurel Adams, and Elizabeth Tollison is on Zoom and is her counsel, legal counsel, and she's submitted the variance application. She might have comments too, but I just wanted to say that Laurel has owned this property for many years and planned for many years to build a home there. And she's got existing water and sewer systems that were installed years ago and approved by Panhandle Health. And as Vlad suggested and stated, neighbors recently to the south have had 25-foot variances, and some of the neighbors to the north are much, much closer to the road. And everybody needs a variance up there in that situation to build. And as he mentioned too, Geotech is the soils engineer, and we've had them out there. They did some test holes originally and compiled a report, geotechnical report, and then we did some further exploration under their supervision. And for our lower retaining wall, we were able to get down to a rock area, and which is perfect for that lower retaining wall foundation or subsoil. But if we don't have that variance, we would be further down and it would be unbuildable at that point. down that slope. And we do have another engineer involved, Storehog Engineering, for the erosion control and stormwater control during and after the project's completed. And Oral also has, as you can see on that site plan, instead of entering her garage from the street side, she comes around into the courtyard and then enters into the side of her garage to alleviate the traffic congestion. And then she has room in that courtyard to park 3, possibly 4 smaller cars there. So this works out really good for the community. You know, it's not a choke point in the traffic. In that fence area, yeah, we're gonna either eliminate that or we would push it back further so it's not into that area. We're not quite certain at this point. But any submittals will be, you know, we'll submit anything to the building department before, and get approval before we move forward with anything there. So yeah, the variance is very much needed, and I do appreciate the assistance that Vlad's given us with going through this permitting process and in the building department there and the variance process. So, and I don't know if Elizabeth has anything to say. Do you have anything to add, Laurel?
Talk about my neuropathy.
Oh yeah, do you want to speak? Yeah.
Yes, my name is Laurel Adams, and I have, this is my variance that we're requesting. And I have severe neuropathy from a surgery, so I have to get into a one-level house. I'm currently in a house that has stairs, and I'm really having problems. And even though I own other houses, they all have stairs. So that's really why this house is so important to me, so I can navigate it, so I can walk. And so I'd appreciate anything you can do.
Thank you, ma'am.
My name is Dan Wood. I reside in Spokane, and I run a drafting service, and I did a lot of the drawings for this project for Laurel. And as she said, she's got some neuropathy. A lot of the design criteria that we followed was to accommodate her aging in place. So we designed it with wider doors, wider hallways, 0 thresholds, so that she could transition into a wheelchair when that time comes. So that's the other reason we wanted the main level at street level, and getting close to the road up there gets us there, so that she doesn't have that threshold coming from her garage into her house. We can get that up to within an inch transition. And of course the house is fitted with an elevator so she can access the lower levels and enjoy the views from that property. Like John Kirkland said, she's owned this property for a long time. It's been a lifelong dream for her. Her husband passed away four years ago, and this was their shared dream, and really like to see it come into fruition for her. And you know, the sooner the better. We've been working on this for 2 years now, and the last year has just been trying to get all of this together to present to you guys. So we just sure thank you for your time and the assistance from the planning department, and I'm glad with the variance. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sir. All right, just double checking real quick. We haven't had a hand raised or anything from anyone online.
Ms. Tellison, did you want to speak to this issue?
I don't have anything specific to add. I think the code requirement that there is evidence of an undue hardship has been covered adequately by both staff and the applicant. To the extent there's a need for rebuttal, I may chime in then, but I don't have anything else now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I do have one filled out comment sheet of someone who may wish to speak. So Ellen Stock, who may wish to speak, come on up. Now is your time, and you have up to 5 minutes. And I do have indicated here you are neutral, so any comments you wish to give, you have up to 5 minutes.
Yeah, my name is Ellen Stock. I'm a resident of South Silver Beach Road. My primary concerns are with parking and traffic. It's a very narrow road, and the two properties that were granted variances, one of the two parcels in particular has not abided by the terms of the variance. And it has raised concerns for us, because if we park in front of our house and guests, workers, park in front of their house, there's no one can go through. We have one neighbor who's got a dual axle. He has to back up and go around the other way. That's how narrow the road is. So I don't have a problem with opposing or this variance request. My concern is primarily the traffic, the parking, because of the narrowness of the road. There have been excuse me, no parking signs placed between these two parcels that were granted the variances, which have been disregarded. And I'm just very concerned about these two issues. And given that it's under the jurisdiction of the East Side Highway District, you know, if we park in front of our house and there's a party or some special event, that there are 3, 4, 8 cars parked across from us, it doesn't rise to the situation where I want to call 911. I feel that they have a party, it's a birthday party, it's whatever occasion, but it does raise grave concerns for EMT or just any thorough traffic. And that's why I wanted to speak tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Would you like to take your opportunity for rebuttal?
Yes, if I could.
Add some comments to that.
So as I stated, in Laurel's courtyard there on the side of her garage, off of the road, she's got 3 to 4 parking spots there. And then on the east side of the road, where she has other properties, there are probably 3, at least 4, and maybe 5 spots for parking over there. And her tenants park up above the road area, but down beside, running parallel, there's 3 more parking spots plus another one that could be a double parking spot across the road down on road level. So during construction, and I understand exactly what this lady is talking about before, because we saw the construction vehicles parked on the neighbors during construction, and it was real tight on that road to get through. But we've got a lot more room than they ever did have on those other projects. And we'll try to control contractors too, is tell them that they can't bring individual vehicles up there, that they have to bring a crew up in a vehicle and not have 5, 6 vehicles for the construction crews. So we feel that there's better parking space there than some of the other projects previously, and think we can handle that probably. And we have been instructed by the fire department to put a no parking sign in front of her property on her new home site there. So, and I'm sure that that sign won't be removed or anything. So Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, and if none of the other representatives of the applicant wishes to use their time for rebuttal, there are some other members of the public here. If this is your last opportunity before I close the public hearing, if you do wish to comment, seeing no indication, and no one else online? All right, I have all the testimony and evidence I need. So at 7:10 PM, I will close the public hearing for variance 22-0005. And again, I will have my recommendation within 2 weeks, and it'll go before your county commissioners for their decision. So